Y'all, even more proof that the Native Americans are not Hebrew. They're Asian, right? And let's not forget, all 5 great Native American nations enslaved the Hebrews and, and voted with the Confederacy to keep us as slaves and chased us down and captured their runaway slaves. So let's check this out here.
Magazine released a scientific study that links the DNA of modern-day Native Americans to a group of people who used to live in the caves of Yunnan, China, the Red Deer Cave.
All right, so what is new about this information that is on top of the fact that, Native Americans crossed the Bering Strait?
Well, basically, it just says that there's a third group of people, not just Siberians, not just Central Asians, but people from essentially modern-day Southeast Asia, because, the Red Deer Caves, it borders Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam. They're the ones that became Native Americans. Okay, we had to go first to the Native American subreddit. Right. Basically, they were like kind of rolling their eyes like, oh, great. They're just another thing to sort of like take us away from who we are. Because, when the white man came and like killed us all or took our land, they were kind of like saying, oh, well, you guys never really belonged here anyway.
Right. And then now people are like joking about like, oh, what are they going to like call us Chinese now?
Right. Or guess what? The Chinese are going to claim us. I don't want to be Chinese. I'm Native American. And by the way, I don't think this study invalidates their identity. I totally think they should feel free
about like, oh, what are they going to like call us Chinese now?
Right. Or guess what? The Chinese are going to claim us. I don't want to be Chinese. I'm Native American. And by the way, I don't think this study invalidates their identity. I totally think they should feel free, and they rightfully should identify as Native American.
What are like some European, like British responses?
Some people are like, I think this is like quite, normal knowledge to me. I think we've known this for like 100 years. If you look at a Chinese and you look at a Native American, they look quite similar.
And I think it's pretty funny because British people, they're more familiar with like Europeans migrating to different places than even Americans are.
Yeah.
Because Americans are always like centered around like, oh, America's like the center of the world. But then British are like, well, you guys came from us. Don't forget.
Yeah, but then white Americans, and obviously I'm sure there's a range of responses, but one was like, hey man, I don't give a damn. They could have came straight from Beijing 10 years ago. We came over here, we won, this is our land.
Meanies, man. What about like kind of maybe Chinese people or maybe particularly people from Yunnan? They might be feeling like kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, hey, we got roots to the Native Americans to North America. What's up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Chinese people probably in the scientific community are just glad they made a big discovery. But people in Yunnan, like you said, they're really excited to see this link. And I can see why, because Andrew, a lot of the people who live in the mountains of Yunnan right now that are sort of these like tribal mountain people, they still have native customs and a lot of things that visually are similar to the Native Americans.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you count like Taiwan and then like you're talking about indigenous cultures from around the world, especially when it comes to kind of like people who are linked to Asia. A lot of the culture is still kind of similar. At least the old traditional like clothing that they wear.
And it's really weird. It goes along with like latitude. So for example, if you look at ancient Siberians and then you look at Alaskans, it's really similar. And then you go one notch level lower and maybe like First Nations and Central Asians. You know what I mean? There's more of a linkage, and then you kind of just go all the way down, because obviously if the migration pattern went all the way down through Mexico, all the way down into Peru, into South America, that's like all one like link of like one or three groups of people.
Right. So I mean, I guess, should this affect how people feel? Because we're talking about 14,000 years ago, human migration, generations upon generations. People probably didn't know why they were migrating, or I don't know if they knew where they were going, because they went through Siberia, which was super cold, and then they could have just stopped and set up shop in California, which would have been great too. But they kept going all the way down.
Everybody just wouldn't want to stop in Santa Barbara or San Diego.
Yeah. But like, what does this stuff matter, or who does it matter to?
Okay, in a modern day geopolitical sense, it doesn't matter, because most people in America don't even study history. They look at life between like 50 to 100 years max.
Right.
So as far as like America goes, it doesn't matter. And not only that, like we said, unfortunately, the Native Americans, I guess like they were on the losing end of the battle with the Europeans for America by a long shot. So I guess even if they did descend, like we said, it's back to that, like that white guys, I don't care if they came from Indonesia, Borneo, y'all don't know nothing. We came and we won the game.
Damn.
That's messed up, right? But that's how, like, sort of some people see it. And I would say this. For me, my major takeaways are a couple things. One, it made me consider the ancient link between sort of like your, ancient Austronesian costumes, Zhuang, Dai people, and Native Americans. Some of the totem poles look the same. Really, like, striking. Okay.
It is interesting.
Number two, it made me think about the link between Asians and Latinos, not only in an ancient sense, like I just said, but also a modern sense. Because even though Latinos nowadays are probably, a lot of them are, I guess, heavily mixed with like Spanish blood from Spain. Especially the indigenous ones, I'm like, oh man, we all like kind of went through the same situations, political identities developed in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So there's a lot of modern day shared history as well. And then it kind of made me think about like the collaborations that we have between Native Americans and Asians. Like,
you mean like the modern day ones?
Yeah, the modern day one. For example, the movie Wind Talkers, about the Navajo Indians helping the Americans fight against the Japanese, but there's a lot of really good scenes in there. One of the, some of the white soldiers, they don't trust the Navajo people because they're like, they just look like nips to me. They look like Japanese to me. And then remember the Navajo guy's like, I do look just like them.
Yeah. Well, because they do look Asian, yeah, in the movie.
And then obviously that was directed by John Woo, who's Chinese. Andrew, Disney Pocahontas looks like a Filipino ABG.
Yeah, I mean, the way they drew her, for sure. I mean, I'm not saying Disney is always the most accurate, but Pocahontas looked very Asian. Her eyes were kind of like...
I heard that there was some debate in Disney of which tribe they should make her look like, because different Native American tribes look more or less Asian. Obviously, the more further south you go, maybe the less.
Well, what is the best current collaboration right now?
Oh, for sure, the casino.
Yeah,
because the government sort of like, I guess, I don't know if they really do, but they kind of feel bad about taking the indigenous people's land, so they give them the casinos. But then the main people who pump money into the casinos and work at the casinos are actually Asians.
Yeah, man.
And specifically, probably Viets or Chinese Viets.
Dude, we didn't grow up too far from this spot called the Muckleshoot Reservation. And in the reservation, you can buy firecrackers and you can go to the casinos.
Andrew, if Chinese Viets are the main people at the casinos and Yunnan, China is sort of in this Chinese Viet zone where it's like kind of like tough to say it's 50-50.
You know what I'm saying, man? Vietnamese were the first Americans.
Yo!
I mean, that's a new theory. That's a new theory right there.
I will say this, Andrew. If we put some fur around your head, you could look like a little Inuit boy, specifically from like Alaska. And some of our Southeast Asian friends, Andrew, if you put like a feather headdress around Richie's head, he could look like a Cherokee.
Yeah. Now, for me, jokes aside for a second, me...
That was with all due respect.
Yeah. I mean, hey, these are some funny theories, by the way. Taking that aside, though, I think that ultimately, if something from like 10,000 years ago even affects your identity today, then ultimately, how far are you going to take it back? Because if we take it back 100,000 years ago, we're all from East Africa. So I'm saying, like, of course... We're all African if you want to go back that far. So how far do you want to go back? 50 years, 500 years, 5,000 years? You name it. It's up to you. Obviously, I think this type of information affects different people differently. I think a lot of people won't care and I think that's generally the right answer too. But also...
Most people don't even care what happened 150 years ago, let alone 15,000 years ago, let alone...
For the first time, researchers successfully sequenced the genome of ancient human fossils from the late Pleistocene in southern China. The data, published in the journal Current Biology. Ancient DNA technique is a really powerful tool, Sue says. It tells us quite definitively that the red deer cave people were modern humans instead of an archaic species. Researchers compared the genome of these fossils to that of people from around the world. They found that the bones belonged to an individual that was linked deeply to the East Asian ancestry of Native Americans. Combined with previous research data, this finding led the team to propose that some of the southern East Asia people had traveled north along the coastline of present-day eastern China through Japan and reached Siberia tens of thousands of years ago. They then crossed the Bering Strait between the continents of Asia and North America in 2018 in collaboration with Siping Ji, an archaeologist at Yunnan Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology, Bing Su at Cumming Institute of Zoology, Chinese Academy of Sciences, and his colleagues successfully extracted ancient DNA from the skull. Genomic sequencing shows that the hominin belonged to an extinct maternal lineage of a group of modern humans whose surviving descendants are now found in East Asia, the Indochina Peninsula, and Southeast Asia islands. The finding also shows that during the late Pleistocene, hominins living in southern East Asia had rich genetic and morphologic diversity, Sue says.
Oh my gosh!
I am 88.7% European. Okay, what do we do?
Oh my gosh, I'm 71.9% European! Hey! Spanish and Portuguese, 69.8.
Okay, Rosalia.
0.3% Italian. No wonder I like pasta so much. Why is this like the most
Broadly so.
white DNA
It's a
test?
very white DNA test.
Ashkenazi is American blood than African blood.
I'm from this tribe, and if you're from Barbados, it's that tribe, and boom, 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 boom. And read the book, said, hey, come on, Pop. What is, you know that ain't right. He said, of course, Danny, I know that's not right. And read the book, said, hey, come on, Pop. What is, you know that ain't right. He said, of course, Danny, I know that's not right. He said, but that's the hook. That's how we get them into place, and we wire them up to what's true. He said, but that's the hook. That's how we get them into place, and we wire them up to what's true. He said, but that's the hook. That's how we get them into place, and we wire them up to what's true. He said, but that's the hook. That's how we get them into place, and we wire them up.
Y'all get the point. Anyway, see y'all.